Mocked for a white girl marrying a black man, years later they changed everything together. Emily and David loved each other very much, but not everyone was happy about it. Some people were mean to them because David was black, and they thought Emily made a mistake by marrying him. Even though people were not nice, Emily and David stayed strong and believed their love was powerful. They were determined to prove that love can win over anything. One day, Emily was excited but nervous as she walked into a big conference filled with teachers. She hoped to learn new things and meet others who cared about education like she did. As she looked around, she saw a kind man standing by the refreshment table. He looked deep in thought, reading the conference program. Something about him made Emily want to talk to him, so she took a deep breath and walked over. "Excuse me," Emily said softly, "is this your first time at the conference too?" The man looked up and smiled warmly. "Yes, it is," he said. "I'm David." "Nice to meet you, I'm Emily," she replied, smiling back. "What brings you here?" David's eyes brightened. "I'm passionate about creating classrooms where every child feels welcome, no matter their background," he explained. Emily felt her heart skip a beat. "That's exactly why I'm here too," she exclaimed. "I've always dreamed of starting a school where all children feel valued." From that moment on, Emily and David became close friends. They attended workshops together, sharing notes and ideas. During breaks, they found quiet spots to talk more about their dreams. Neither of them wanted the conference to end. They exchanged phone numbers, promising to keep in touch and continue their conversations. Emily felt more determined than ever to make her dreams come true after meeting David. As the weeks went by, Emily and David's friendship grew into a special love. They spent lots of time together, talking about their hopes for the future. Emily loved David's warm smile and how he always knew how to make her feel better. David admired Emily's kindness and strong will. Together, they felt like they could do anything. But when people in Emily's small town saw them together, they didn't always treat them kindly. Some of Emily's friends stopped talking to her, and at David's school, other teachers whispered behind his back. Some parents even asked to move their kids out of David's class. One evening, David and Emily sat on her porch, swinging slowly. David sighed. "I never thought loving someone could be so difficult," he said sadly. Emily squeezed his hand and looked into his eyes. "I know it's hard," she said, holding back tears, "but our love is worth it. One day we'll help people understand that love is stronger than anything." David hugged Emily close, feeling strong because of her deep love. "You're right," he whispered. "Together we can handle anything." Even though they had many challenges, Emily and David found comfort in each other. They spent long evenings talking about their troubles and giving each other support that no one else could. Their shared problems made them more determined to create a world where everyone is welcomed and valued. They dreamed of opening a school where all kids would be happy and accepted. They worked hard on making plans and finding money to start the school, and they felt happy and excited about their shared dream. One evening, Emily and David sat on their favorite park bench, holding hands as they watched the sunset. David looked at Emily with love and said, "I know we've had many challenges, but I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Emily's eyes filled with happy tears as she hugged him and said, "Yes, David, 1,000 times yes." They started planning their wedding and decided to keep it small with only close friends. They were worried that a big wedding might bring unwanted attention and problems. "I wish we could invite my whole family," Emily said sadly, "but I know some of them don't understand our love." David gently held her hand and said, "What matters is that we have each other and the people who truly support us." They chose a quiet garden for the wedding, a place that showed new beginnings. As they wrote their vows, they promised to fight for fairness and to let their love be a light for others. Even though they were happy, they noticed that people were talking and staring at them. Some friends stopped talking to Emily, and some of her colleagues worried about how the marriage would affect their jobs. But their real friends helped with the wedding and gave them support. When Emily and David's wedding became known in their town, people reacted strongly. What was once quiet disapproval turned into loud criticism. Emily's family was upset, and her mother called her crying and angry. "How could you do this, Emily? What will people think?" Emily tried to explain. "Mom, I love David. He's kind and shares my values. Please try to understand." But her mother didn't listen and ended the call, leaving Emily feeling very sad and alone. At church on Sunday, Emily felt everyone's disapproval. Her former teacher told her, "We're praying you'll change your mind. It's not too late to cancel the wedding." Emily left the church early, trying not to cry. Even her closest friend, Sophie, sent a message saying she couldn't be Emily's maid of honor because she didn't support the marriage. At work, Emily heard her colleagues whispering about her relationship. One of them said, "It's a shame." Emily was a wonderful teacher, but the harsh words from people around her were hurting her a lot. She began to doubt if she was doing the right thing and if her love for David was strong enough. The trouble in her personal life made her feel very lonely. Emily and David tried to support each other while dealing with the criticism and problems around them. One night, as they sat on their porch, David held Emily's hand and asked, "How are you feeling?" Emily softly said, "It's really hard. I didn't expect my family and friends to be so unkind." David nodded and said he knew it was tough for both of them. After a moment of silence, Emily decided to talk about a big change. She said, "Maybe we should move to a bigger city where people are more accepting." David liked the idea and thought it would be good to start over in a new place where their love wouldn't be judged. They spent the next few weeks looking for different cities that had good schools and friendly people. Finally, they chose a lively and diverse city a few hours away. Even though moving was hard, packing up gave them hope. They were leaving behind their problems but taking their dreams and love with them. On the moving day, Emily looked back at her old home with tears in her eyes, but David comforted her. He asked, "Are you ready for our new adventure?" Emily wiped her tears and said, "As long as we're together, I'm ready for anything." When they arrived in their new city, they felt excited but nervous. They drove through busy streets and felt hopeful. After moving into a small apartment, they looked for the right place to start their school. One rainy day, David saw an old broken building on a quiet street and showed it to Emily. She thought it was perfect and began to imagine what it could become. Even though the building was in bad shape, Emily and David saw a future with happy kids and a strong community. They talked to the building owner and bought it at a good price. They started working hard, cleaning and fixing the building after their regular jobs. They painted the walls with bright colors and made the place ready for their school. Emily imagined how great it would be for art classes as she worked with paint in her hair. David smiled proudly and said, "We can turn that big space in the back into a library with books from all over the world." While they worked, they talked about their plans for the school. They wanted it to be a place where every child felt safe and included, no matter where they came from. Emily had a great idea. "We can have special days where kids share their family traditions and learn from each other." David agreed, saying, "And we'll make sure our teachers come from many different backgrounds so every child can see someone like them." As they started fixing up the old building, they found lots of problems like leaky pipes and broken wires. One day, Emily felt very tired and worried. She said to David, "I don't know if we can do this." David hugged her and said, "We can do it. Remember why we're doing this." Emily felt better with his support. They had worked too hard to give up now. Money problems made things even harder. Their costs were going up and they didn't have much savings left. They asked local businesses and neighbors for help, but many said no. Emily felt like it was the same as before when they had trouble. David held her hand and said, "We'll find a way. We always do." Their hard work paid off when a local store owner gave them supplies at a lower price. It wasn't a lot, but it was a start. They still faced doubts from some school board members. One official said, "Your idea is too dreamy. How will you make it work?" Emily looked at David and then said firmly, "With love and a belief that every child deserves a chance, that's how." Despite all the problems, Emily and David found happiness in their dream. Every small win, like a newly painted classroom or a donated book, made them feel better. Finally, the day of the open house came. They had decorated the school with colorful banners and set up a table with homemade snacks. As the time for the event came, they looked around hopefully. But the room stayed mostly empty, with just a few people coming in. Emily tried to stay positive and said, "Maybe they're just late." David squeezed her hand and tried to stay hopeful. Among the few people, they saw some local officials looking unsure. A serious woman from the education board walked up to them with a frown. "This all seems very ambitious," she said, looking around the room. "How will you handle such different students?" Emily took a deep breath to stay calm. "We think diversity is our strength," she said clearly. "Our lessons are made to celebrate differences and help everyone understand each other." The woman raised an eyebrow, not convinced. "That sounds nice, but can you really make it work?" she asked. As the evening went on, Emily and David answered questions and doubts from the few parents who came. One father, with his arms crossed, asked sharply, "How can you make sure my child's education won't suffer with this plan?" David stepped up, staying calm. "We're not doing an experiment," he said. "We're making a safe place where every child can succeed. Our teaching is based on research, and we are committed to this." Even though Emily and David faced many doubts, they answered each question with patience and excitement. After the visitors left, Emily and David were alone in the quiet building. They could have felt discouraged by the low turnout and doubts, but instead they felt even more determined. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," David said softly, hugging Emily. "But it's worth it," Emily replied, her voice full of determination. "Every child we help makes it worth it." They stood in their school, more committed than ever to their dream. When the first day of school came, Emily and David stood at the entrance, feeling both excited and nervous. At 8 o'clock, a small group of 12 children began to arrive, each from a different background or with different abilities. Emily knelt down to greet a shy girl with glasses. "Welcome to our school, sweetheart. I'm Mrs. Emily," she said warmly. The girl's eyes brightened, and she whispered, "Amia." David helped a boy in a wheelchair with a new ramp. "Hey there, buddy. I'm Mr. David. Let's get you settled." As the children came into the colorful classroom, Emily and David shared a joyful look. This was their dream coming true. The day was filled with introductions, games, and activities to help the children get to know each other. Emily and David had used their creativity to make the classroom special. They made posters and used recycled materials for learning tools. During story time, David read a story about friendship and acceptance. The children sat in a circle, listening with wide eyes. Emily saw Mia, who was shy earlier, now completely involved in the story. At lunchtime, they all sat together at a long table with a variety of foods from different cultures. Emily and David encouraged the children to try new foods and share stories about their favorite meals from home. "My grandma makes the best tamales," said Carlos, a boy with a bright smile. "What are tamales?" asked Maria, curious. Carlos explained excitedly. Emily and David were proud. This was the cultural exchange they wanted. Throughout the day, they faced small problems like a language barrier and a disagreement over crayons, but they handled each one with patience. By the end of the day, the classroom was full of laughter and new friendships. As the last child waved goodbye, Emily and David were tired but happy. We did it, Emily whispered with tears of joy. David nodded, his voice emotional. This is just the beginning. As weeks went by, Emily and David faced new challenges. The school's money was running low, and bills were piling up. One night after the children had gone home, they sat at a desk looking at their budget. We're short on rent this month, Emily said, her voice shaky. She pushed her hair back, worried. David held her hand. We'll figure it out, he said. They stayed up late, determined to keep their dream alive. The next morning, Emily came to school with a box of homemade muffins. Bake sale? David asked with a raised eyebrow. Emily nodded. Every little bit helps. They set up a table outside selling baked goods to people passing by. It wasn't much, but it was a start. David started giving after-school tutoring for a small fee because they needed money. As people learned about their financial problems, the community began to help. Parents offered their time to fix things and help in the classroom. One family gave a used computer and another brought art supplies. Even with these kind gestures, it was still hard to make ends meet. Emily and David saved money wherever they could. They used old books, made their own cleaning supplies, and started a small vegetable garden to save on food. One tough month, they had to think about not paying themselves. We might have to skip our own paychecks, David said quietly. Emily agreed, her eyes full of determination. The children come first always, she said. Their hard work didn't go unnoticed. When Mia's mom found out, she started a fundraiser at her job. It didn't fix everything, but it helped a lot. Despite their worries, Emily and David always made sure the kids had a good time at school. They loved their students and each other, and that kept them going even when things were really hard. Emily and David wanted to do more than just keep the school open. They wanted to build a community and show off the talents of their students. They decided to organize events to bring people together and raise awareness. Their first event was a cultural fair. Emily excitedly told the children, "We're going to celebrate all the beautiful cultures in our school family." The students got very excited and helped prepare. Colorful posters decorated the hallways, and parents set up booths with traditional foods, clothes, and crafts. On the day of the fair, the playground was full of color and sounds. David welcomed everyone with a big smile, saying, "Welcome to our little slice of the world." Emily walked around proudly, watching as kids talked about their family traditions with visitors. The fair was a big success and gave Emily and David the idea to hold more events. Next, they planned a talent show where kids could perform. For weeks, everyone practiced, and on the night of the show, the gym was full of people. Emily held David's hand, her eyes shining with happy tears. One by one, the kids performed. Mia sang a lullaby her grandmother had taught her, and Ahmed danced a traditional dance. The audience clapped loudly for every performance, showing how much they enjoyed the show. Afterward, Emily and David felt very grateful for the support. The events raised money for the school and made the community feel united and proud. As more families heard about the special school, more children started coming. One morning, Emily saw Mia, a shy girl, painting in the art room. Emily watched as Mia's brush made colorful shapes on the canvas. "That's beautiful, Mia," Emily said softly. Mia looked up, surprised, and then smiled a little. "Thank you, Miss Emily," she whispered. Over the next few weeks, Emily and David watched as Mia's art became more beautiful. Her paintings were put up on the school walls, and she started sharing stories about them with her classmates. At the same time, David worked with Ahmed, a student who was having trouble with math. Every afternoon, they worked on math problems together. Even when Ahmed got frustrated, David stayed calm and encouraged him. He said, "You can do this, Ahmed. Let's take it step by step." Slowly, Ahmed's confidence grew and his test scores got better. One day, Ahmed came into the classroom waving a paper and said, "Mr. David, look, I got an A on my math test." David hugged Ahmed and said, "I'm so proud of you, Ahmed. You worked really hard." Emily and David were happy to see their students doing so well. They knew their dream was coming true. But then, a local politician named Councilman Richard Thornton, who didn't like the new ideas at the school, started causing trouble. One morning, Emily got a letter saying the school was being investigated for not following local rules. Emily told David, and he was confused because they had followed all the rules. In the following weeks, they faced many problems. Surprise inspections, complaints, and their car tires were slashed. There was a threatening note on their car saying, "Leave now or face the consequences." Emily was very upset, but David held her and said, "We won't give up. We need to keep going." The threats kept getting worse. There was graffiti on the school walls, nasty phone calls, and false rumors spread around. Despite everything, Emily and David didn't give up. They invited parents and local people to see the good things happening at their school and showed they were following the rules. But Councilman Thornton made people afraid of the school, saying bad things about Emily and David. Through all this, Emily and David grew even closer. They talked a lot and remembered why they started their school. One night, Emily told David she was scared but didn't want to give up. David gently squeezed her hand. "Neither am I," he said firmly. "We're not alone in this fight." And they weren't. As news about the school's problems spread, help started coming from many places. Former students, parents who were happy with the changes in their children, and local businesses that liked the school's community work all began to show support. Emily and David decided to use this support to take action. They planned a peaceful march through the town center on a sunny Saturday and invited students, parents, and community members to join them. They were amazed to see hundreds of people showing up with signs that said nice things. During the march, David saw a small group of people protesting, led by Councilman Thornton. Instead of ignoring them, David walked up to Thornton and said, "We might not agree, but we're all part of this community," and said, "Would you like to visit our school and see what we're really doing?" Thornton was surprised, but didn't say yes right away. The moment was shown on local news, showing David's willingness to talk. The march ended at the school, where Emily and David had set up an open house. They invited everyone, including supporters and critics, to visit the classrooms, meet the students, and ask questions. The school was full of people talking and finding common ground in wanting good education for everyone. One crisp autumn morning, while Emily and David were drinking coffee in their small office, there was a knock on the door. A young woman with a notebook introduced herself as Sarah Chen, a journalist from the local newspaper. "I'd like to write a story about your school," Sarah said, excited. "I've heard great things about what you're doing here." Emily and David looked at each other, surprised. They were used to negative news, so this offer felt like a bright spot in a storm. Sarah spent the next few days watching classes, talking to students and parents, and interviewing Emily and David. She listened carefully as they talked about their dream of a school where every child felt special and supported. When the article came out on the front page of the Sunday paper, Emily and David couldn't believe it. Sarah had written beautifully about their dream. The article talked about the school's welcoming approach, the hardworking teachers, and how the students' lives were getting better. "Look at this," David said, his voice full of emotion as he read a parent's quote. "My daughter used to hate school, but now she's excited to go every morning." Emily wiped away a tear. "We're really making a difference, aren't we?" The article made people in the community interested in the school. Some were unsure, but many liked the idea of a school where everyone felt included. Then something amazing happened. Donations started coming in. It began with small amounts, $20 here, $50 there, but soon bigger donations came in too. A local business offered to buy new textbooks for the school. A retired teacher started helping kids who were having a hard time at school. Every donation, even a small one, made Emily and David feel happy and hopeful. They carefully wrote down every donation and planned to use the money to make the school better. One day, while checking the latest donations, David smiled and said to Emily, "You know what this means? People believe in us now." Emily felt hopeful and said, "It's a start. We have a real chance to keep our dream alive." One sunny morning, Emily saw her parents and older brother arriving at the school in a familiar car. They looked a bit uncomfortable and curious. Emily told David that her family was there, and David held her hand and said, "It will be okay. Let's show them what we've built." Emily greeted her family with a warm smile and led them into the school. She was nervous, but happy to show them what they had done. Inside the school, the hallways were bright with colorful drawings and inspiring quotes. Kids were laughing and talking as they went to their classes. In one classroom, a girl was sharing a project about her family's traditions. Emily's father raised his eyebrow but watched the other kids listen and ask questions. Next, they saw David teaching a math class. He helped the kids solve a tricky problem and encouraged them to work together and think creatively. Emily saw her brother Ryan nodding his head in approval. Emily explained that they wanted every child to feel important and supported, no matter who they were. Her mother's face softened a little. As they walked by a bulletin board with student awards, Emily showed them a certificate for Sam. Sam had trouble reading when he first came to the school, but now he was doing really well. Emily's family looked at each other, starting to understand. At the end of the tour, a little girl ran up to Emily and hugged her. She said, "Miss Emily, I got an A on my science test." Emily knelt down and told her, "That's wonderful, Ella. I'm so proud of you." Emily looked up and saw her family watching. Her father's stern face had softened a bit. Later, Emily and David were at their desk when a letter arrived. The foundation that had given them money was stopping their support. Emily felt scared and sad as she read the letter. She asked David, "What are we going to do?" David took her hand and said, "We'll figure it out, just like we always do." The next few weeks were very stressful. Emily and David worked hard to find new ways to get money. They asked local businesses for help, applied for grants, and even used their own savings. One night, as they were going over the budget again, Emily started crying. She said, "Maybe we were wrong to think we could make this work." David hugged her tightly and said, "No, Emily, what we're doing here is important. These kids need us." Even though they tried their best, they had to make some hard decisions. Emily and David were finishing up after a long day at their school. They had to cut back on supplies, cancel field trips, and think about having fewer staff. But their love for each other and their students stayed strong. One tough day, as they were cleaning, David saw Emily looking at a wall covered with student artwork. She smiled and said, "Remember when Omar couldn't even hold a pencil? Now look at his drawing." David stood next to her, his arm around her waist, and they looked at Mia's poem too. They remembered how shy Mia was when she first came to the school. They stood there for a while, feeling happy and proud of their work. Emily looked at David with determined eyes and said, "We can't give up. We've come so far." David nodded with a small smile and said, "We won't. We'll keep fighting for this school and these kids." That evening, as they were leaving the school, a fancy car pulled up and a tall, well-dressed man stepped out. He looked at the building with a familiar smile. David recognized him and said, "Alex Thompson, I remember you." David introduced Alex to Emily, and they invited him inside. Alex shared stories about how David had helped him when he was a student. Alex then saw the pile of unpaid bills and became serious. He said he wanted to help because he had heard about their struggles. Alex took out a big check and gave it to David. He said, "I want to help keep your dream alive." David was surprised and said they couldn't accept such a big amount. Alex insisted, saying that what they were doing was very important. Emily started to cry when she realized how much this money would help. With Alex's donation, Emily and David felt hopeful and ready to improve their school. They decided to use the money to fix up their building and make their school even better. Emily and David worked hard to make their school better. They hired local people to fix the leaky roof, update the old electrical systems, and paint the building in bright, cheerful colors. Inside, they got new desks and chairs and put up colorful, inspiring posters on the walls. Emily and David picked everything carefully to make the classrooms warm and welcoming. Next, they wanted to add new programs. David set up a computer lab with the newest software so kids could learn in fun new ways. Emily worked on new teaching methods like project-based learning to make lessons exciting and mindfulness practices to help kids focus and manage stress. As news about the school's changes spread, more families wanted to join. Parents who were unsure before now eagerly signed up their children. The hallways were busy with new students who were excited and nervous. Emily and David greeted everyone with smiles, making sure they felt welcome. The improvements made a big difference. Students who had trouble before now excelled. A shy girl confidently presented her science project, and a boy who had trouble focusing was now engaged in math lessons on a tablet. The community noticed the positive changes too. Local businesses began helping out, like the corner bakery giving bread for lunch and the hardware store offering discounts. One crisp autumn morning, Emily got a surprising phone call from her mom. Her parents wanted to visit the school again. Emily felt a mix of excitement and worry because her parents had been unhappy with her marriage to David. When her parents arrived, they were surprised by how beautiful the school looked. David greeted them warmly, and they saw how much progress had been made. They visited the art room and the science lab, where students were doing amazing things. Emily's mom saw a wall full of children's drawings with the words, "Our School Family," and realized what Emily and David were doing was special. As the visit went on, Emily's dad and David talked about the new teaching methods, and the tension melted away. Their school started to get noticed outside their town. A national education magazine sent a reporter to cover their story. Emily and David were excited and nervous as they showed the reporter around. The reporter saw students from different backgrounds working together, using virtual reality to learn about history and taking care of a small garden. David explained that they wanted kids to experience things, not just read about them. And Emily added that making every child feel valued was important. The reporter wrote an article about their school, sharing their inspiring story with the world. Emily and David were very surprised when their phones started ringing a lot. People from all over the country wanted to know about their school. Local TV stations wanted to talk to them, and even a big national TV show wanted to feature their school. This extra attention brought new help. A tech company gave them computers and tablets to use in school. A children's book writer came to read to the younger kids every week. A famous chef offered to make the school lunch menu healthier and tastier. As more people heard about the school, more families wanted to send their kids there. Emily and David's school became very well known and a place where kids could learn and grow. They were happy, but stayed focused on their main goal, making sure every child at their school could do their best. One night, Emily got a call from her mom. Her mom sounded very emotional and asked if they could visit the school. Emily felt nervous but agreed. The next day, Emily and David waited at the school entrance as Emily's parents and old friends arrived. At first, it was quiet, except for the sound of kids playing. Then Emily's dad stepped forward with tears in his eyes. He said they were wrong to not see how special the school was. Emily's mom reached out to hold Emily's hand and asked for forgiveness. Emily cried as she hugged her parents, feeling the pain of the past fade away. David watched with happiness for his wife. Emily's old friends also apologized and said they were proud of what Emily and David had done. They shared how they had seen the school grow and realized their mistakes. Emily's childhood best friend, Sophie, said they wanted to help. David was happy and said they would be glad to have their help. In the next few weeks, Emily's family and friends worked hard to help the school. Her dad, who used to be a carpenter, built new bookshelves for the library. Her mom, who was good at gardening, helped the kids grow vegetables in the school garden. Sophie, who worked in marketing, helped tell more people about the school and get more support. Other friends helped by raising money, volunteering in classrooms, and working with after-school programs. Emily and David greeted everyone at the school's big celebration event with happy smiles and warm handshakes. The air was filled with excitement as families, supporters, and community members came together to celebrate. The school's auditorium was full of colorful banners and artwork made by the students. The chairs were set in a half circle facing a small stage decorated with flowers. As everyone took their seats, Emily and David walked to the front, holding hands. David went to the microphone and spoke with a lot of feeling. He said, "Welcome, everyone. We are so happy to have you here today. This school has been our dream for a long time. Seeing it become real and seeing how it helps our community is more than we ever imagined." Emily joined him, her eyes shining. She said, "We want some of our students and their parents to tell you their stories." The first to speak was a young girl named Mia. Her hands were a little shaky as she held her notes, but her voice was clear. She said, "Before I came here, people picked on me for being different. But at this school, I learned that being different is okay. Miss Emily and Mr. David taught me to be proud of who I am." Mia's mother then stepped up, putting an arm around her daughter. She said, "The change in Mia is amazing. She is confident, happy, and excited about learning. This school has been a blessing for us." One by one, students and parents shared their stories. A father talked about how the school helped his son with a learning problem. A teenage boy spoke about how David became like a father to him during tough times at home. As the stories went on, everyone in the room had tears in their eyes. Emily and David listened, feeling so happy and thankful. They saw their dream in each story, a dream of making a place where every child felt important, supported, and able to do their best. Later, Emily and David were nervous backstage at a big national education conference. The auditorium was full of teachers, school leaders, and policymakers from all over the country. Emily squeezed David's hand, feeling both excited and nervous. She whispered, "Can you believe we're here?" David smiled, feeling calm. "We've come so far, Emily. Our story needs to be told." When their names were announced, they walked onto the stage holding hands. The audience applauded warmly. The bright lights showed the hard work and determination on their faces. David began speaking clearly and steadily. He said, "Thank you for having us today. Our journey started with a simple dream to make a school where every child, no matter their background, could succeed." Emily continued, showing her passion in every word. She said, "We faced many challenges, prejudice, money problems, and even threats. But we never gave up because we believed that education can change lives." They took turns telling their story, from their first meeting to the problems they faced in starting their school. They talked about the small wins that kept them going, like a child's first math problem, a parent's thankful tear, and a community coming together. They explained their unique teaching methods and how their school was a safe and caring place where kids could grow without being judged. David said, "Our school isn't just about learning. It's about building good character, kindness, and preparing kids to be caring and understanding adults." Emily added, "We've seen how this can change not just individual lives, but whole communities." When they finished speaking, the audience clapped loudly. Teachers from different places came to talk to them, excited to learn how to use similar ideas in their own schools. One principal from a small town in the Midwest shook their hands and said, "Your story is so inspiring. I've wanted to make changes in my school, but was scared. You've given me the courage to start." When Emily and David got back home from the conference, they felt hopeful and excited. They had no idea that their speech would bring even more recognition to their school. A few weeks later, on a cool autumn morning, Emily opened an important-looking envelope with shaky hands. She read the letter and then called out to David, her voice shaking with excitement. "Come quick!" David hurried over to Emily, his face showing concern. "What is it, Emily?" he asked. She handed him a letter, her eyes filling with happy tears. "We won the National Award for Excellence in Education," she said. David read the letter, and his face went from surprised to extremely happy. "This is amazing, Emily. Our little school is getting recognized all over the country." The award ceremony took place in Washington, D.C., with many important people there. Emily and David stood together on stage as the presenter read about their great work in education and community building. "We are proud to give this year's National Excellence in Education Award to Emily and David, founders of Harmony Heights School," the presenter said. The crowd clapped loudly as Emily and David took the award. Emily had tears of joy as she saw so many supportive faces. "This award isn't just for us," David said into the microphone, his voice full of emotion. "It's for every child who has ever felt different, every parent who had trouble finding the right school, and every teacher who worked hard to make a difference." Emily agreed, adding, "We hope this award helps people see how important inclusive education is and encourages others to create similar places in their own communities." The next morning, their story was on the front page of big newspapers and news websites. TV crews came to Harmony Heights School to film the happy kids learning and playing. Emily and David shared their story with the nation, talking about their struggles, the help they got from unexpected places, and how education can change lives. Emily and David stood in front of their newly fixed-up building next to the school. The new paint shined in the sunlight, and a colorful banner hung above the door that said, "Harmony Community Center, where everyone belongs." Emily squeezed David's hand and whispered, "Can you believe it? Our dream is becoming bigger than we ever imagined." David smiled, feeling proud. It's amazing what love and hard work can do. They had worked hard for months to turn an old warehouse into a bright community center. They wanted it to be a place where families could come together, learn, and support each other after school hours. When they cut the ribbon to open the center, a small crowd of parents, students, and community members cheered. Emily saw familiar faces in the crowd, her family, who had once been unhappy with her choices, now standing proudly to support her. Inside the center, there was lots of activity. Kids were reading stories in a bright corner, teenagers were using computers in a new lab, and adults were taking free English classes. "Look at this, Emily," David said, pointing to a bulletin board full of flyers. "We have after-school tutoring, art classes, job skills workshops, and even a community garden." Emily nodded, feeling very happy. "And don't forget the food pantry and clothing exchange. We're not just helping with education, we're also helping with food and other needs." As they walked around the center, a young mother with a baby stopped them. "Thank you," she said, her eyes full of thanks. "This place is changing our lives. I can work now because of the affordable childcare, and my older kids are getting help with their schoolwork." David gently touched her shoulder and said, "That's exactly why we're here. We're all in this together." As more people learned about Harmony Heights School and the new community center, Emily and David became the focus of a growing movement. Their new way of doing things had caught the attention of educators, activists, and leaders all over the country. One sunny afternoon, Emily looked through letters and emails at her desk. She smiled at David, who was grading papers. "Can you believe this? Schools from California, New York, and even Alaska want to know how we did it." David put down his pen and walked over to Emily. He looked at the screen and said, "Wow, they really want to learn about our model." Emily nodded with excitement. "They want us to visit and help them set up similar programs." Emily and David spent the next few weeks getting ready to share their ideas and plans. They wanted to tell others about how they teach, involve the community, and raise money. One day they had a video call with some teachers from a small town in the Midwest. The teachers looked excited as Emily and David talked about their work. David told them that the most important thing is to make sure everyone feels loved and respected. When kids feel important, they do really well. Emily added that it's not just about the kids. Involving the whole community helps everyone. The teachers listened carefully, took notes, and asked questions. One teacher, who sounded emotional, said that Emily and David had given them hope. Their story showed that even if things are hard, change is possible. As the weeks went by, Emily and David balanced their school jobs with their new role as guides. They got invites to speak at conferences and write for educational journals. One evening, after a busy day at Harmony Heights School, they sat together on a bench in the schoolyard holding hands. They watched the last students leave with their parents. The air was filled with happy sounds from their community. Emily leaned on David's shoulder and said softly, "Can you believe how far we've come?" David squeezed her hand and replied, "Sometimes it feels like a dream." They thought about all the tough times they had faced: disapproval from Emily's family, resistance from the town, money problems, and political challenges. But through it all, their love for each other helped them keep going. Emily said that even though there were days she wanted to quit, looking at David gave her strength. David agreed, saying their love made them strong. They realized that their hard work had made a big difference. Their school, Harmony Heights, had become a place of hope. Kids who might have been left out elsewhere were now doing well. Parents who felt alone found support. David thought about how their work had helped not just their own town, but other communities too. Emily felt grateful that their love had turned obstacles into opportunities for others. Once there were two people named Emily and David who worked very hard to make their community a better place. They turned an old, boring building into a colorful center where everyone could come and play, learn, and share their food from different countries. The walls of the center were painted with bright pictures showing how everyone can get along. Inside the library, there were books in many languages so everyone could find something to read. At night, families from different places cooked and ate together, sharing stories and recipes. It smelled like food from all over the world. Emily and David were very happy to see people who once didn't get along becoming friends. Even the politician who wanted to close their school now helped teach people about being good citizens because he had changed his mind. The center also helped people who were having tough times by offering support groups, job training, and a place to heal. As people learned about the center, they came from other towns to see how it worked and to start their own centers like it. On the anniversary of the center, everyone gathered to celebrate. Emily and David were proud as they saw their friends, family, and even Emily's parents, who once didn't support her, now cheering for them. David's old student, who became very successful, gave a toast and thanked Emily and David for showing that love can overcome any problem and make dreams come true. As the sun went down, Emily and David stood together watching children play happily. They felt amazed at how far they had come. They were happy and thankful, knowing their love had made a big difference. The celebration showed that love could change the world and help people get along. So, do you think love can really help people get along and solve big problems? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you like this story, please subscribe to my channel. I work hard to write these stories for you, and your support helps me keep going.